first of all, I just want to say hello, welcome everyone to the main shrine room at the London Buddhist Centre for this Wednesday evening class, and also welcome to you if you're on YouTube. I will trust that you're waving back at me, and you're very welcome to be joining us this evening. So my name is Suvarnajyoti, and I'm going to be leading the evening, and we're going to be looking at something about my personal perspective on the mindfulness of breathing. And I'll be hoping that that might speak to you in some way. But let's start with a bit of an arrival. So for those of you in the room, if you would like to lie down, find a way to lie down. Let's have heads to your left. Actually, for the ladies in skirts, let's have heads to the door. Let's have heads to the door. So if you could lie with your head to the door. We don't want to scare anyone when they walk in. With your head to the door.
Are you happy there?
Yeah, so if we could just have everyone... So, yeah, that's great. Now, so what you want to be doing... So Gauravati here at the front, it will be demonstrating the suggested way to lie down, which is to, in fact, once she's finished fiddling around, she can't quite find. What she's looking for is a very narrow cushion, aren't you? Yes. Okay. All right, are we okay? Okay, we're okay up the back there. Right, Leah, have you got somewhere to... Leah, have you got somewhere to lay? Great. There's a big space here at the front, Leah. There's a massive space here. No, you don't have to. You're all right there. Okay, all right. Nobody wants to sit next to me. That's fine. Okay. So, yeah, you want to make sure that the cushion behind your head is a thin one, not a big fat one, so that, and in bending your knees up, and make sure your feet are hip width apart. Oh, sorry. That's what I want to do. There we go. All right. Okay. Feet hip width apart, and you with your hands either on your belly or your abdomen, or by your sides. Whatever's feels most comfortable to you. And you can let your knees fall in towards each other if that feels more comfortable. Because the important thing is we're just really trying to arrive. And in order to do that, we want to relax. And so maybe just starting with a couple of nice long out breaths, like a big sigh up to the ceiling. And one more. And as you do the out breath, really letting yourself give your weight up to the cushion, to the mat, and to the floor. So in fact, the earth is always holding us. So let's really consciously allow that just now. And just noticing the points of contact, particularly the points of contact between you and the earth just now, which will be the feet, probably the pelvis and the back, it may be the arms, the head. Just really noticing the quality of the sensations. Noticing how there's a kind of a blend where you can't quite tell where you end and the support begins. There's a sort of energetic blurring. And probably your mind is pinging off all over the place. That's very normal. This is just a chance to just keep inviting it back into the body. Gently soothing, smoothing your mind down and into the body. As if you were stroking an overexcited animal. And just trying to gently soothe them and quieten them down. And if it's helpful to you, you could imagine that energetic connection through the floor, down through the building, and into the rich and living earth beneath the building. Completely full of potential. Just like us. And maybe even having a sense of drawing up the energy from the earth on the in-breath. And then allowing yourself to give your weight up to the earth on the out-breath. If that works for you. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. And as well as this sense of being rooted down, we're also open to the sky and the space and the air. Even if there isn't a huge amount of a sense of sky and space and air in here just now, nevertheless, there's this infinite space above and all around us. And also up close and intimate, touching your face and your hands, is the air and the sky. So allowing yourself to have an overall sense of you, your body, your space, right now, right here, on this little bit of earth, under this infinite sky, deeply interconnected with both and with each other. And now we're just going to bring a bit of kindly attention through our bodies. And we're going to start with our head. So not the thoughts in your head, but the actual physical experience of your head just now. So there'll be some strong sensations where your head is, where the weight of your head is bearing down on the cushion. But also a sense of your scalp and your ears. The touch of the air on your face. Giving your face a bit of a break, allowing it to soften. Softening the brow and the eyes, the cheeks and the jaw. Now taking your awareness down through the neck and throat. Seeing if you can soften the throat. And maybe you can notice the sensations of the breath as they pass down as it passes down into the lungs. So it's a bit cooler when it goes in and warmer when it comes out. And then moving your awareness to your shoulders, arms and hands. Can you invite your shoulders to soften a little bit, as if they're sinking down into the earth? And now taking your awareness to your back, the full length of it and the full breadth of it. Maybe you can feel the bones, the muscles in between, the ribs at the back, and the sensation of the diaphragm moving with the breath. And now taking your awareness down into the pelvis, legs and feet, so the lower half of your body. Noticing the weight bearing, where the pelvis is in touch with the floor. The different angles, sensations and temperatures. Can you notice the spaces between your toes? And now letting the spotlight of your awareness broaden out to include your whole body. All the different sensations therein and around the body. And seeing if you can lightly just allow the sensations of the breath just to come slightly to the foreground. So you're keeping that overall sense of the body, but just tuning in a little bit more to the sense of the breath as it breathes you. And for the next couple of minutes until I ring the bell, just keep coming back to that whenever you get distracted. Being gentle with yourself, gradually letting yourself come out the practice, seeing if you can just set a light intention to try to stay connected with this more meditative awareness as we go into the rest of the evening. So, in your own time, you might want to roll over on one side and then gradually bring yourself upright. Just be mindful of not putting your foot in someone's face. And just make yourself comfortable. I'm going to say a little bit before we meditate again. So get whatever you need to kind of sit comfortably, or if you want to pop onto a chair for that, please feel free. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. Do feel free to, if you can't see me, if you want to just shuggle your mat sideways a bit so you can see me, do just shuggle. It's a good Scottish word. Sort of, it's a wiggle and a shudder all in one. That's it. Yeah, just make sure you can see. Great. Okay. Yeah. So So this evening I'm going to do two. Well, yeah. In the first half and the second half, two kind of different. Sort of way, in a way, it's a bit of my own working ground around working with the mindfulness of breathing. In the first half, I'm going to say a little bit about how I've come to work with the 4-stage structure that we're all familiar with, and a bit about my journey with that. And then in the second half, I'm going to talk a little bit more about different ways to think about mindfulness more broadly than the structure of this practice. So So I have to be honest. I'm going to start with a bit of a confession, which is that it's taken me a long time, many years, to sort of come to a place where I actually kind of quite like the 4-stage structure. But when I first started out and first learned it, it's like I couldn't quite settle into it. It didn't quite make sense to me. I would ask teachers about it, and, I would always they'd say something like, oh yeah, so the first 2, each stage is supposed to help you concentrate a bit more. And I would sort of think, oh, there must be something wrong with me, because that's not my experience of the practice. I can see 2 people nodding already. And yet I had ultimate faith in Suvarnajyoti, who founded this movement. Then this was his presentation of this core practice to us. So I had a faith that, he hadn't got it wrong. I just had to sort of find my own way in to how to work with it. And what I did for a while is I cheated, which means I just kind of didn't do the counting because I couldn't somehow find a way to make that work for me. But more recently, and actually much more recently, I finally sort of feel like I've come into a way of doing the 4 stages that speaks to me and feels alive for me. So I'm going to share that with you this evening, and then we'll have a go at that. And then after the break, there'll be a chance for you to kind of ask questions or let me know how that went. So the way that I think about the practice now is that the first stage, counting at the end of the out breath, for me, I prefer to think of that as relaxing and letting go. So that's, in my mind, relaxing and letting go, and then I drop the count in at the end of the out breath, as in the practice, but in a way that my effort is around that idea of relaxing and letting go onto the earth, a little bit like we were doing in the body scan just now. And then in the second stage, the other thing I wanted to say was, and that's because, and why it makes sense to start with relaxing and letting go, is because we can't really get anywhere with meditation until we've got some level of relaxation and letting go, because we're just too, as a culture, as a species, we're just too tightly wound, largely speaking, most of us. If you're not, then well done you. But for most of us, that's the case. Perhaps particularly living in a busy city. So really thinking of breathing out, relaxing, letting go, as almost as the preliminary to get to going anywhere else with your practice. Then in the second stage, so you're counting at the beginning of the in-breath, in a way that's, for me, that feels like tuning into a bit more of a sense of alertness, but from the place of having relaxed fully and let go. So it's a sort of embodied alertness that kind of with the in-breath, it sort of brings energy in. It's not a kind of frizzy, intoxicated, adrenalized alertness of having too much coffee or having been rushing around too much today. It's not that kind of alertness. It's an alertness of the energy arising from the first stage, which was the relaxation, if that makes sense. So the first stage is the relaxation, letting go. As you count at the beginning of the in-breath, you can think of it as drawing in the energy of alertness. And so for me, that's the kind of preliminary. So we've got some relaxation and we've tuned into a bit of alertness. And that enables us to step into, to open into this third stage, which is the point at which, in a certain sense, we kind of let go of the conceptual mind a bit more, because you have to have a little bit of conceptual mind in order to count. But as you go into the third stage, we drop all that and just completely open into the breath. So I think of that as opening and breadth. So you're opening into the breath and opening into that fully embodied experience, but with the breath in the foreground, just as we were doing at the end of the body scan just now. And then as we go into the fourth stage, I think of that as gathering and focus. So we gather and focus around the place where the breath comes in and the breath goes out. So we've got these four qualities: the quality of relaxing and letting go in the first stage, a quality of energized alertness, but coming from an embodied place, so an energized alertness in the second stage, opening and breadth in the third stage, and gathering and focus in the fourth stage. And all of those qualities, we need all of those qualities in our meditation practice. And at different times, in different moments, one of those qualities might be slightly more important than another, according to what state you're in at that time or whatever. But we need to be tuning into and developing and cultivating all of those qualities in order to have a sort of fulsome approach to our practice. So for me, that's how I am currently sort of working in the practice and making sense of it. So I'm going to invite us to give that a go now in the run-up to tea. So stage 1 is relax, stage 2 is alertness, stage 3 is opening and breadth, and stage 4 is gathering and focus. Okay? So hopefully that's clear. Invite you to give that a go. And of course, if that really doesn't speak to you and you have your own way into the practice, you can do what you like in the privacy of your own mind. But for the rest of us, let's give that a go. And I'll be really interested to hear how it lands for you all. So let's set ourselves up for a period of the mindfulness of breathing. Really make sure you've got everything you need to be comfortable, because we're going to be sitting for about 25-ish minutes. There we go. There we go. Right. And when you're ready, closing your eyes. And just starting by stopping and taking a little weather check, noticing what's going on in your body. What the emotional weather's like. And what's the quality of your thoughts and your mind just now? And seeing if you can just let that be what it is. No particular experience you're supposed to be having. You're just coming into relationship with what's actually there. Because you can only start from where you are. You can't start from anywhere else. Taking a moment to let your awareness trickle down through your body. Until it's all the way down to where you're in touch with the earth. So we're starting from a place of full embodiment. The mindfulness of breathing. First stage, counting at the end of the out-breath, relaxing and letting go. sense of tuning into an alert awareness as you drop the count at the beginning of the in-breath. Staying grounded with that. Stage 3, dropping the conceptual mind and just opening into breadth. Fourth stage, gather and focus. And now just dropping any effort that you're making whatsoever. And for the last few moments until I ring the bell, seeing as best you can if you can just sit completely openly without trying to do anything, without trying to not do anything. Just sitting. So do feel free to have a stretch. We're going to have a tea break just now, which is a phrase I haven't said since February 2020. So yeah, I invite you to go and have a cup of tea, and I just, encourage you to make the most of that tea break. And if you don't know anybody, see if you can just chat to someone, talk to them about how that practice was for you. So it's a real opportunity for us to meet with like-minded people who are interested in meditation. So don't be shy, because we all secretly want to connect with each other. So I invite you to do that, and we'll see you back here in a bit. Good. My door monitor.
Door monitor,
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Great. Great. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, YouTube. Yeah. If you snuck your phone on in the tea break, please snuck it off again for the second half. That would be good. Okay. So, going to have an opportunity in a little while to hear any sort of reflections on the practice we did in the first half, or any kind of general questions around mindfulness of breathing. I want to say something else first, so that, and then we can just have some general Q&A, and then we'll have another practice, and then that will be us for this evening. So, I want to talk a little bit more. So first half was talking about how I think about the structure of the practice. And in this half I want to say something a little bit about sort of my relationship to this word mindfulness. I actually don't really like the word very much. I don't think it is, and again, this is something that I've sort of gradually realised over the years, is for me, it doesn't really speak to me. It's not really a very good description for me of the experience of being present. The word that there are various words that get translated as mindfulness, translated into English as mindfulness, but the one that's most commonly associated with meditation is a word sati. So if you've heard of the Satipatthana Sutta or the Anapanasati Sutta, they're very core Buddhist teachings. So the sati is the mindfulness that you would associate with meditation, and it has a quality. Not that I'm fluent in ancient Indian languages, but I am reliably informed that the translation has a quality of recollection. So this idea of recollecting and remembering. And I really like that sort of sense, that kind of quality, because it's a bit like, I don't know what your experience is like, but my experience of myself and my mind is that I'm sort of all over the place most of the time, and every now and again I kind of remember that I've got a body, but mostly I'm just like this, and so for me, this idea of recollecting is something about, oh yes, sort of remembering that there is more to me and more to my experience, more to consciousness than just this frizzy, skittery surface of my mind in which I'm busy thinking, oh, what have I got to do for work? What have I got to do for this? Oh, does she like me? Does she not like me? Oh, what do they think about me? All of that sort of the story of me, as it were, that's all up there. That actually my consciousness, your consciousness is far more than that. So I really like that quality of recollecting. And I also like the idea of remembering, because to me that's like member for those of you perhaps who, particularly if English is not your first language, member is sort of an old-fashioned word for like a limb. So a sort of remembering is almost, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a fully embodied being. So you're sort of remembering that you've got all these bits of yourself that are not just this frizzy mind. So that's the kind of quality. And for me personally, I don't think the word mindfulness really kind of sums that up. I think for me it feels a little bit intellectual and a little bit kind of, a little bit kind of, I don't know, cold and clinical and a little bit intellectual, which isn't, that isn't what the experience of it is. But I know certainly when I was first learning meditation, I think that sort of, I got a little bit stuck there, and I didn't quite, it's taken me a while to get into the richness of the actual experience. One of the definitions, I sometimes teach secular mindfulness courses, and the definition within those of mindfulness is that it's, paying attention deliberately in the present moment with kindly awareness, with kindness, which is a really useful technical definition, but it doesn't really rock my world, It's just a bit like, okay, so yeah, that's like a really good working definition to get people started in their practice, to have a sense of what's going on. But once you become regular meditators, you have to keep your relationship with awareness fresh. And I think one way to do that is to play around with different ways of thinking about it, what mindfulness is. So I'm going to give you sort of three suggestions that I play around with. So the first one is thinking of the practice, the 4-stage practice. You could think of it as the bodyfulness of breathing. So particularly if you're someone, which is definitely who I was and still can very easily be if I don't sort of keep an eye on myself. I think it probably took me a good few years of meditating before I sort of had any sensation below the neck, basically. So this bodyfulness of breathing, if you're someone who's very much in your head, very kind of into ideas and intellectualizing, and maybe has that kind of a job, then maybe thinking of the mindfulness of breathing as the bodyfulness of breathing will really help you to really come into the body, to recollect your physical experience, to remember the breadth of your experience of the breath, because otherwise it can just get a bit heady. So that's one suggestion you could play with, bodyfulness of breathing. Another suggestion is the heartfulness of breathing. Now, the interesting thing about the word mind that we have in our language, in the Buddhist tradition, the word that we would use is chitta, which actually translates as something like heart-mind. So in the Buddhist tradition, there isn't this idea of a separation between your thoughts and your emotions and your body in the same way that we have it in our it's the water we swim in, isn't it? Like that's how we're brought up, to think that our mind and our body are separate. Even though when we really look at our experience, you can see that actually that can't possibly be true. It isn't true in our experience, but we're so brainwashed into thinking that. And the same with our emotional life as well. So this idea of heart-mind, like we're often told, you need to be logical, not emotional. Like they're two separate things. And it's not that there aren't times when it can be that can be a kind of useful working definition. But if we're really looking at our experience, bringing in a heartfulness, so a real sense of your breath coming through your emotional life as well, that might be another angle in that may speak to some of you. And then finally, the third one I'm going to suggest is a little bit similar in some ways, is the kindfulness of breathing. So an example for this might be just really inviting the breath to come in and out as a kindly breath, so that you're creating a kind of a sense, like a field of kindly awareness with this breath as it comes in and out. Often we can forget about the dimension of mindfulness that is about doing it with kindness. Often we're much better at sort of frog marching ourselves through it rather than remembering that quality of kindness. So you can think of it as a soothing, kindly breath. A little bit like when you see a sort of a mother, a human mother or an animal mother, really soothing their little baby. That quality of kind of love and kindness that you could bring into the breath, especially if you're feeling a bit disconnected from yourself, a bit cold, a bit sort of alienated. That might be a really lovely way to sort of warm up your experience with the breath. And of course, these three words that I've either stolen from other people or made up, bodyfulness, heartfulness, kindfulness, they're not separate. They're sort of different. You could think of them as kind of just different ways in, different gateways into your experience of present moment awareness. And you can decide for yourself if any of those words speak to you. If you want to, when we do the practice again shortly, whether you want to pick one of those words and play around with it in the practice, whether you want to try all three of them, or whether they don't speak to you at all, you're quite happy with the word mindfulness, in fact you don't even care what it's called, and you'll just get on with it yourself. You can choose that. You can choose when we come to it. So we've got a little bit of time now for questions, either here in the room or for people on YouTube. If you've got any questions, if you'd like to type them into the chat box, and Claudio will let me know. So do that if you would like to do that. So put a Q at the front if it's a question, in case people are chatting to each other on there. Okay. So, has anyone got any questions or want to comment on how they found the practice in the first half? Or any questions about that? Any question about what I just said, these three made up words? Leah.
I just wanted to comment that I think that's so interesting. I really love what you've just done here, because I've never, also in the first half, about the different stages, because I'd never really thought about them embodying different qualities, but that was really useful. Okay. And then also, I just really liked what you've just said about why mindfulness might not be the best way of approaching it, and bodyfulness and kindliness. What was the first one?
Kindfulness and heartfulness.
I just think it's. I think that's going to be really useful. So it's more of a comment than a question, but I just wanted to thank you.
Okay, thanks, Leah. Leah's just saying she likes what I've said. I'm just just repeating it for YouTube, just so you didn't miss it. Anybody else got? Yes. Hi. And what's your name? Niall.
With the final stage, I think I sometimes find, I guess the third stage feels quite expansive, and sometimes I don't quite know how to then relate that more focused stage to that feeling, or how that's like an evolution of the stage before. I don't know if that's a question really, but.
Okay, so Niall's asking about the kind of the sort of transition from stage 3 to stage 4 in a way. Yeah. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. So can you say a bit about what you do? How do you, or how did you do it in this practice we've just done? Because it might be a bit different every time, I imagine.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's that more, what feels more expansive to me in that third stage, and like you described it as less conceptual, which I found useful, and I think it's almost like my instinct would be then I want to go to something bigger and more expansive, and sometimes that focusing on like the pointer where breaths, nostrils or whatever, can feel like zooming in. And so I think when I was maybe trying to, it almost feels like my mind, I want them to be the other way around, which obviously, what do I know, but like.
Right, in terms of, you'd rather have stage 4 as stage 3 and stage 3 as stage 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, yeah, what might I say about that? Well, I suppose one thing I could say is, in a sense, the format of the practice is important, and each, as I was saying, like sort of each stage is a training in something different. But I would really encourage you, and this goes for all meditations really, is don't be careful to not let the technique become more important than the principle. And the principle is that we're trying to train our minds to be calmer and clearer and more expansive. And we're trying to train our attention so that we are able to kind of move it more consciously, because that helps us in our daily life. When you find yourself in your daily life in the middle of doing, maybe you don't, but when I find myself in my daily life in the middle of doing something that isn't really that clever, then maybe having an argument with someone in my head or in real life, then because I've been training my attention to move, I can then sort of more deliberately move my attention, because I've been training it to sometimes be bigger and sometimes be more gathered. So in a sense, you could see it as a training principle around that. And you could also play around sometimes yourself and say, well, what would that feel like? Why don't I try it? Why don't I try doing stage 4 before I do stage 3 and see what that feels like? And you could also just sort of, have a quiet word with yourself and really think, well, what is this really about, Niall? Are you just like, are you just blissing out there? And is that something that, I'm not casting aspersions, but is that a tendency for you in your life that maybe the training and gathering is something that might be helpful to you in your life? You don't need to comment. I'm just, I was saying to someone in the break, we bring our minds to the cushion. The mind that we discover when we sit down on the cushion will be the mind that we've shaped to be that way. So in a way you can, that's a fruitful area of exploration for you to sort of experiment with that. And and don't throw the technique out, but don't shoehorn yourselves into a technique. It's the principle that's more important than the technique. I think anyway. That's other people my fellow order members might disagree, but anyway, I'm up here tonight, so that's what I think. Okay, all right, good. Okay, we've got time for one more. Hello, up the back there. Yes.
I'm Jonathan.
Jonathan, hi, Jonathan.
I want to ask a question about your experience, or other people's experience of doing this, because I find that when I do the mindfulness of breathing, especially even when I just did it, that I kind of have 2 levels of experience, in that I'm counting my breath and I can do that, and then obviously, not obviously, but I find that my mind drifts off into thoughts, and the thoughts trigger emotions, and then I notice them, and then I go back to doing whatever I'm supposed to be doing in that phase for a period, and then it happens again and again and again. And what I'm wondering is that I've only been doing meditation not very long, but I'm curious about what other people's experience of doing it for a longer time is, and whether what happens is that the gaps between the thoughts and the coming back widen, or if there's anything to hope for, or what other people's experiences, because I'm kind of hoping that I can widen the gap and remain in the breathing, and I'm hoping that if I do it for a long time, that will happen. So I don't know if that's a very specific question, but I'm curious about your experience.
Yeah, sure. I can definitely say something about that. I think we quite often get asked, what's it like to have done this for quite a long time, and I want to be balanced. I'd like to, I don't want to disappoint you, but my experience isn't that much different in a way. And I think one of the, how could I speak to this? I think one of the challenges with meditation over time is that we bring this same sort of, we bring to meditation the approach that we bring to life, which is in life, you want to learn a skill, so you start off and you learn it and you're not very good at it, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it, largely. You might have a few blips here and there, but largely it's a relatively linear kind of process, and you gradually get better, and then maybe you take some exams in it, and then you've got a certificate that says you're really good at it, and so on and so on. Meditation's just not like that. Our minds are, I think our minds are far too complex and multi-layered and multifaceted. And so probably I would say my suggestion would be is to take that kind of frame of reference away as being not entirely applicable. Because what that can very easily get into is, I'm not very good at this, I should be better at this by now. Or once you get ordained, I should be better at this now because I'm an order member, and so on and so on. And you're into that sort of comparison and competitiveness, or competing with yourself, or wondering what other people are doing, and they all look all blissed out and they're probably right on their breath the whole time. All of that, which they're not. And so it sort of, in a way, it's a bit of a red herring, I think. What could I say on the more positive side? I think what's happened for me over time is that I am much more accepting of whatever my experience is at that moment. So one way of thinking about meditation, particularly a mindfulness kind of meditation, is that it's a practice of becoming more accepting of what is just there. And sometimes you'll sit down, and sometimes you might have the bigger spaces between, a more expansive mind, and other times you won't. And there'll be a whole host of conditions that will have contributed to that. Infinite number of conditions at any given point. One of the things, Garavavati was talking about going on retreat. She's talking about that in the break. And one of the things about that is that you've kind of got more time and space and less modern distractions, which means that you've got more space to be in a less competitive relationship with your mind, in a way, and to open to it. But there isn't really anything else in our normal culture that's trying to encourage us to be accepting of things exactly as they are. It's very radical compared to how we are made to think by the media, by consumerism, by all of that sort of thing. So I'm not sure if that quite answers your question, but it maybe gives you something to experiment with, and you can tell us and come back and tell us another time how that went. How are we doing for time? Maybe there was somebody waved down here. Maybe just one more question. Was it you? Hello. Yes.
It's a quick one. My name is Brenda.
Brenda, hi.
I notice a lot of the time during the mindfulness of breathing that I get distracted in one of the early stages, and since the stages sort of build on each other, when the bell rings, I then start trying to catch up with that one. So I'm just gonna try to count my out breath for maybe 5 more breaths so that I'm prepared for the next one. And I was wondering, in your experience, if you feel like if you still use times for the stages, or if you know when you're kind of ready for the next stage.
So, okay, Brenda, let me just check I'm understanding the question. So you're feeling like, you know, the bell goes and you've been distracted. So the bell goes at the end of stage 1. You've been distracted. You've been thinking about something else. So you suddenly think, oh, quick, I've got to kind of like count a few out breaths before I change to counting my in breath. And then I'll have to catch up with everyone else. Is that sort of sense of internal pressure with it? Yeah?
Yeah, it's more like I'm almost never ready for the 4th stage because I didn't build the relaxation or the energizing and the breath so that I can really get there to the 4th stage. And my question is it better to start from scratch or to just get on with it?
No, it's an interesting question, and I think it reminds me a little bit of what I was saying to Niall. I think there's something there about kind of noticing what you're bringing to that. Is that like you want to make sure you're getting it right, you want to make sure that, you know, you've got an idea in your head about what the 4th stage should look and feel like, and you're thinking, oh, my current experience doesn't quite match with what I think that should be, and therefore I must have done something wrong earlier on, and there's a whole sort of analytical thing that goes around it, which may possibly be one of your tendencies in life, but again, I'm not asking you to comment. I think I would just say relax. You know, in a way, again, the format is a framework, and it's a framework that we don't want to throw it out, but also to hold it lightly. And when the bell goes, it's like there's no one there in your mind except you to know. Like, it's not like boom on the snap of the bell, in breath. You know, I'm changing. You know, you can. You've got to be sort of work with yourself and think, oh, okay, yeah, you know, and maybe you then change to the stage in the next few breaths, and that's fine, and you can just kind of let yourself off the hook a bit with that. And again, I would encourage you to try not to have too fixed an idea about what the 4th stage should feel like. Like you said, and I get there and I'm not really ready to be really, you know. And again, I think that's just all story that we tell ourselves. You know, you could just really gently see what that feels like to bring your awareness into the breath. And if it really, you know, and if it's not really, you know, if you're sort of feeling tense around it, just sort of relax into that, and you could go back into this 3rd stage a bit more if you feel you need to, and so you don't need to hold on to the practice like something I can't think of in metaphor, but you can. The framework is meant to help the principle of you coming into a present moment awareness of your breath and your mind. So sort of let it work for you rather than sort of it being something that you use to criticize yourself. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So have a go at that and let us know next week how that goes. Okay, folks. I'm going to leave I'm sorry, I didn't get to YouTubers. Did YouTubers ask a question?
There was one question.
There was one. Do you think I'll be able to answer it quickly?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
he says. Go on then.
Eve asks,
Eve.
how did you get to the point where you had a relationship with the body, not just the mind? I.e., how did you personally, when you said you felt numb below the neck, how did you stop feeling that?
Thank you for that question, Eve. I think just by practicing in some of the ways I've been indicating tonight, really, the first big stage for me was to really notice that that's what was happening, to let myself off the hook, as I was saying to Brenda, and just keep softening and keep doing practices that really connected me into the body and onto the earth. Even just walking on the grass, anything that would kind of connect me into my body and into nature, into the world around me and out of my head. and just keep doing that without, gently and kindly, and any kind of body work practices, of course, will help as well. If you're into yoga or qigong, tai chi, those kinds of things will really just help you gently kind of, begin to feel the pulse below the neck. So just don't give up. Keep going, and I hope that helps. Okay, right. Let's do another mindfulness of breathing then before we finish. Or you might want to do a bodyfulness of breathing, or a heartfulness of breathing, or a kindfulness of breathing, or whatever combination of that appeals to you. Okay. So, here we go. Right. So taking your time, setting up your posture, and when you're ready, closing your eyes. And in whatever way works for you, just taking a couple of moments to invite your awareness down into the body. It's probably up in your head more from listening to us talking. Connecting into the earth through the points of contact. Softening the face. The mindfulness of breathing. Just noticing if you're forcing your breath in any way and letting yourself breathe completely naturally. just dropping any effort that you're making. Just sitting in open awareness. Just about nearly out of time for this evening, folks. Thank you all very much for coming and participating so fully. And also just like to finish the evening with just a little request really for people in the room and people on YouTube. For those of us that teach here at the centre, we don't actually get paid to teach. We teach for free because what we've learned here and what we've learned at the centre has been of such incredible value in our lives that we just want to share that with people, offer that to people, and hope that they too get some value from it. And that sort of spirit of generosity is part of the Buddhist tradition. And if you're in a position to join us in that spirit of generosity and to give us a donation for the session this evening, for the YouTubers, I think Claudio's probably just putting a link online. For those of you in the room, there will be somebody at the door with a bowl when you're leaving. And if you would like to give us a donation and you're able to do so, that will just help us to keep going and to keep offering our classes to as many people as possible and making them as accessible as possible. And if you're not in a position to donate anything or you don't want to do so, that's also absolutely fine. You're equally welcome to be here. So that's it for this evening. Next week, is it you next week? No? Don't remember? I don't remember. Is it you? You don't remember either. No. So it's not you, is it? Okay, so by next week we will have looked at our collective diaries to work out which order member will be speaking next week. So somebody next week will be talking about their personal perspective on the Metta Bhavana. So really hope to see you back next week. And I'm going to be at the door when you leave. So if you want to say hi or ask any questions, please feel free to do so. And that's it. Go well.
Thank you.
Thank you.